Now we're going to move on to a different category. Our next speaker, Lieutenant General David Buck, retired. He is president of BRPH Mission Solutions. General Buck served in the U.S. Air Force for 41 years with a career dedicated to space, nuclear, and cyberspace operations. He directed U.S. STRATCOM Space Forces in support of national security and combatant commander objectives, leading over 19,000 men and women. Dave was responsible for protecting and defending critical U.S. and allied space capabilities. In 2018, he retired as commander of the 14th Air Force and has testified before the U.S. House of Representatives. Who better than the general to talk about the range of the future?
Well,
Dr. Neal, you may think of me as a hedgehog when I'm done speaking today. I'm slow, not very clever, and not usually survive. Okay, did anyone go to the range of the future industry days at Caucus Space Force Base a few weeks back? Right. So kudos to General Purdy, Shoemaker, Colonel Horn, Colonel Long. That's exactly what we have to do. We have to engage with industry to figure this out because we certainly don't have all the answers, right? I did not attend. I had a conflict, and my team attended, but I didn't attend. My goal today is to not repeat what was said there, but compliment and reinforce what was said there. I don't think I'll repeat because I didn't go, right? But just to be clear, these are Dave Buck's opinions. These don't represent the opinions of the United States Space Force, the Department of Defense in any way, shape, or manner. So with that big caveat right out of the way, let's jump right into it. So I don't have to convince this crowd that space and space-related activities are analogous to what I would refer to as a gold rush of the modern era. Primarily being fueled by, not primarily, but a lot of it is being fueled by venture capitalists and private equity. And commercial industries leading the charge. Commercial industries leading the charge. It used to be historically, when you looked at the ranges, and I'm just going to talk about the eastern or western ranges for this example. Historically, when you look at the ranges, you see a launch go off and you say, that's a DOD launch, or that's an NRO launch, or that's a NASA launch. That's not the case anymore. We've broken that paradigm. We've stood that on its head. Guess what percentage of the manifest at the eastern range were commercial launches in 2021? Give me a number.
80%.
Who said that? Wow. 84%. Really? That's astonishing to me. ERPH prize for you. %. Is that crazy? Who would have thought that? And that trend is only going to continue. No question in my mind. Commercial industry is going to lead the charge. So a lot of questions come out of that, right? Should the Space Force be commercial force? Well, then we have this DoD warfighting mission we have to sustain too. Probably a hybrid model moving forward makes the most sense. And we'll talk a little bit about that going forward. I want to say next slide, but it's on me. So there are, all that to say, there are a lot of opportunities out there in space. But what we're here to focus on today is access to space, assured access to space. And how do we get there? Going back to that gold rush analogy. 1858 in the United States, the gold rush began. And, you know, you've heard stories about miners who struck it rich that find a nugget of gold the size of an egg or a baseball. But in reality, those were few and far between. Who really got rich? What was really the backbone of the gold rush?
Blue jeans.
Who said that? Who said pickaxes and shovels? Another prize, right? So logistics, right? It was logistics that fueled the gold rush. It was pickaxes, it was shovels, it was mules, it was wagons, it was booze. I have to move around. I'm real proud and how I'm tied to that podium. I apologize for it. Just the way I'm wired. But that was the backbone, right? That was the backbone of the gold rush, the logistics, the acquisition. Those are the people that made the money, and that's what fueled the gold rush. The same can be said for Spaceflip. It's the backbone of the gold rush in space. Now, when I was on active duty, I stayed in the operational community my entire career. I was an operations guy. And I argued till the cows came home, very effectively, I might add. The spacelift is an operational function. I was dead wrong. Spacecraft on a rocket, launching it into orbit, doing operational checkout is a logistics and acquisition function. Pure and simple. It's like an F-22, F-35, tank, carrier, it doesn't matter. We need to normalize. It's an acquisition function. Fortunately, Space Force has that right. The 30th and the 45th Space Launch Deltas now report up through the acquisition chain. That is a space systems. They got it right. I have it wrong. So I say we've got it right, but we have a hell of a lot more work to do, right? That fundamental tenet of logistics, first in, last out, beans, bolts, bandages, and into the AOR, has taken root in every other domain except for space. We're getting there. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about on-orbit servicing, motherships in space, gas stations in space, tugs, escort ships, on and on and on. That's our growth, and that the implication, of course, is space lift has got to fuel that growth. We were coming up with this briefing, and I was talking we were talking as a team in ERPH. I said, hey, put a title of the slide in there, Lightning Rod for Change. I am so old, and they are so young, no one else understood what Lightning Rod for Change was. Or burning platform for that matter. So I'm sure I'm age a little bit. These things are the impetus for change. Just this month, our president signed the National Defense Authorization Act. In it, there is a plus up for the eastern and western ranges for infrastructure. Not a lot of money, $5 million. But nonetheless, they're recognizing the need for change. Because our ranges, especially the eastern and western ranges, are dated, right? Again, the implication there is we can't do everything for the eastern and western ranges. We have to leverage landlocked, non-traditional ranges as well. And we need to figure that out. It's really sexy right now to talk about the proliferation of LEO. And LEO is proliferating, no question. But it's really about the proliferation of all orbital regimes, LEO out to cislunar and beyond. And if we don't think that our adversaries are exploiting those domains, then we're thinking wrong. So we need to get on board with that. And of course, as we proliferate all of these orbital regimes, we need access to space. In 2017, I was testifying before the House Armed Services Committee, and I had to beg, borrow, and steal and convince all the entire legal community that I could say space is a warfighting domain. Now we say it freely, space is a warfighting domain. It's a domain we must protect and defend. But we've come out of the closet on it. We can talk about that. And of course, what does that mean? When you have a warfighting domain that you must protect and defend and maintain superiority in that domain, you have to have an ability for rapid reconstitution. Again, logistics, very, very important. I don't think there's any argument that the infrastructure and policies that are ranges are dated. And we're going to work through that. But, you know, we get caught in the past sometimes. This is the way we've always done things. We really need to get out of that mentality and move forward. Multi-use sites are a reality. I think multi-use sites are a reality, especially for smaller launch vehicles. Some of these big, heavy lift vehicles may not be a reality. Force may already be out of the farm. But we've got to look at multi-use sites because we have limited real estate. We just don't have a lot of real estate on the coast. Mobile assets have got to come. Gone are the days when we're going to have these fixed optics and telemetry sites and plug and play mobile assets. Let's look at our exclusion zones. Are they too big? Why do we have these big exclusion zones? Can we shrink those down? What about our impact limit lines? Same thing. Hasn't technology got to the point where we have confidence in what we're doing and we can reduce those impact limit lines and exclusion zones? An autonomous flight safety system, that's coming, folks. Get on board or you're going to be behind. Because by 2025, if you're commercial and you're flying off of ranges, you're going to have to fly with AFSS. And if you're a test program, ICBM, Navy, whatever, 2030 is when you turn into a market. New market entrants, 9 companies in the United States have achieved suborbital and orbital. Pretty impressive. And more, and they're just begging for range space, right? In the 45th and 30th, it's like, whoa, where are we going to put you? It's a big challenge. But it's a challenge we need to embrace and move forward. Happy birthday to the United States Space Command and the United States Space Force. They celebrated their 2nd birthday last year. You know, when my daughter Nikki was 2 years old, I remember watching her, and somehow she got hold of a loaf of bread. And she took the wrapper and the tie off of it, and she was putting took every single slice out of the bread, and was laying it on the floor in some sequential manner. And then she picked up every slice, was stuffing it back in the bag, right? Ready, so she's a mechanical engineer now. But that's kind of where the Space Force is, right? They're looking, what in my bag of tricks here? What's in my bag? I'm taking everything out, figuring out how everything fits together, and we're putting it back in the bag. So they're going to figure it out, and they're making great progress. Of course, United States Space Command. Space Command is the combatant command, the 11th Combatant Command, responsible for protecting and defending the space domain. And the United States Space Force, 6th branch of our armed service, responsible for organized training and equipping that force to protect and defend. And I talked previously about how they got it right with the launch deltas and putting them under SSC, the acquisition of so many. Our Chief of Space Operations, General Raymond, has been pretty clear. He's laid out his edict. He said, hey, we want to enable commercial activities while still ensuring the DoD has assured access to space. We have to update the infrastructure. We have to leverage private-public partnerships in order to transform, maybe a little strong, probably evolve the ranges into national space force. Truckload of challenges associated with that, right? I just wrote a few down. How do we communicate more effectively with industry? I think that Range of the Future Industry Day was a huge step forward. But if I were industry, I'd hold my own industry days and invite the DoD. We have to communicate. Commercial industry can go so much faster than the Department of Defense. And if they don't have all the answers, and they know that, they're looking to you for the answers. So do their thinking for them. You know, when I was still on active duty, I hated it when people would bring me challenges with no answers, no solutions. If you can bring me a challenge, bring me a solution. Yeah, I'll make a decision. But help me out. I don't have time. Policy stagnation, we talked a little bit about that earlier today. Environmental is always going to be a challenge moving forward. But I think there's a compromise. We can work through environmental concerns. We just have to be smart about it. Integration, system disparity, limited real estate, multi-use facilities. Money is always a problem. But I think the biggest challenge here is our tendency to be risk averse. And that inhibits us from going fast. A lot of examples of companies that failed to innovate. Late 90s, the Sears board of directors got together and said, hey, should we go transform beyond just brick and mortar companies? Oh no, customers want to come in, they want to touch the refrigerators. They want to see those socket sets they're buying. They could have been the next Amazon, but they stuck with a brick and mortar mentality. Didn't evolve with the times. Who remembers Atari? Holy crap. Atari could have been the next Nintendo. It didn't evolve. On and on and on, right? So many examples of people that said, hey, if it's working, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? But it is broke. They just can't see that it's broke. They're not evolving with the times. So educated risk has to be part of our equation as we're moving forward. Failure has to be an option. We all talk that we're really good innovators and really good risk takers. We're not. We're horrible at it. Why do you think our adversaries are going so much faster than we are? We're so careful and deliberate. My God, we've got to break that mold. Late 1950s, there was a joint program between the CIA and the United States Air Force, highly classified. It was declassified in 1992, called the Corona Program. Satellite photo reconnaissance program to fly over the Soviet Union and look at their ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missile fields, and submarine tanks. The first 12 missions failed, blew up on the launch pad, stages didn't separate, film canisters didn't deploy, couldn't read the film. It wasn't until the 13th mission that they had a successful program. That program was credited with keeping the Cold War cold. Would we have that same kind of risk tolerance today? One launch failure, I would argue today, will stagnate a program for years, or maybe even kill a program in its entirety. We talk a good game, we don't mean it. We have to have more risk tolerance. We need to get there quickly. So we have to stop tilting at windmills. What are our imaginary enemies in evolving Range of the Future forward? Migrating toward landlocked, non-traditional spaceports. Our imaginary enemy is risk. It doesn't exist, folks, if you don't allow it to exist. We need to press forward, and we need to press forward really hard. So moving forward with a Range of the Future, I've talked about some of these points. Multi-use launch facilities, but not just launch facilities. Payload processing facilities, control centers, on and on. Autonomous ops is coming. Get used to return flights. Tourism, we talked about that. We're going to talk about that a little later on today. On-orbit servicing, logistics, we have to upgrade our infrastructure, our fiber, our water, our commodities. Concurrent ops. I see a day when we're doing concurrent ops on the ranges. Got a launch going off here, got a launch going off here, same day, same time maybe. We need to get comfortable with new paradigms And seamless at all the coasts, all the ranges, right? Plug and play. Am I at Vandenberg today? No, you're at Cape Canaveral. No, you're at Wallops. It should be seamless to the customer going in. Airport-like operations, we talk about that a lot, of hard vision to achieve, but we can get there, folks, if we can just be innovative and be a little more risk tolerant. We don't have all the answers. No, we still think DOD doesn't have all the answers. We know we don't have all the answers. We really need your help. And I'm going to get off the stage here, but I want to leave you with something that's very important to our country, and that is protecting your information. From a people perspective and from a cyber perspective. I tell you, it took us over 10 years to develop a space shuttle and a hell of a lot of national treasure. It took the USSR 2 years to develop theirs, and it looks a hell of a lot like ours. Our lunar rover, same thing. It took a long time. NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory took a long time to develop the lunar rover. Wow, China's in 2020. It's a heck of a lot like ours. And SpaceX stuck the landing, right? But then you look at the Long March 2C, it has the same exact methods. And you could make a case. There's only so many designs you can have with a space shuttle or so the rovers can look like that. Have grid fins to land, come back and land. Let me put a little fine point out. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory wanted to spell out JPL on the wheels of the rover. So every time the wheels turned on another planet, it would stand towards letters JPL in the surface of the moon, surface of Mars, wherever. NASA said, don't do that. So, okay, we're going to use Morse code. We're going to spell JPL out in Morse code. That's what they did on the treaded rovers. Dashes, squares, whatever. China's rover has the same exact Morse code on their wheels. So every time the Chinese rover wheels turn, it spells JPL in Morse code. You think they're not stealing our stuff? They're stealing our stuff. Watch your stuff. Okay, hey, that's all I have. I apologize if I went over time. Happy to take questions, argue, agree, whatever.
We have time for a few questions. There's the mic's over there. There's a couple of questions.
Thank you, General. Dale Ketchum, Space Florida. General Raymond's been very powerful and eloquent about his articulation that the national security requirements can best be met by relying on the commercial sector. But there's also the inherent anxiety that's going to come with somebody moving forward. How much can you deal with them to make sure you're not jeopardizing the absolute imperatives you need to meet those national security requirements? How would you best, and this is just for understanding how to best meet that challenge, how would you best articulate how we thread that?
Just to rephrase your question to make sure I have it correct. How do we balance the need for commercial spaceflip with the needs for national security space and protecting and defending the domain?
Yep.
Okay. So clearly, in my mind, we're going to have to, if I'm not mistaken, and that boy, it's dangerous because I'm getting out of my comfort zone a little bit. I think there's a requirement, and maybe you can help me out with this. I think there's a requirement for national security space launches to go off our federal ranges. You know if that's true?
That's on the contract, and I'd have to look at my friends in Space Force, and I see it, it's written in your head about it. I think it's contract dependent, because we have had situations where there were classified missions. We have had instances where classified missions took place under the United States. So it is possible, but my experience is that the DoD or whomever's contract
would specify where the location for these are launched from. So I think that the aperture is open to that a little bit, but I don't know that it's exercised very frequently in Space Force, but then it's stuff there.
Jim?
It's US based Space Force, but not necessarily.
So that's where I see the trade schools. I think we get a little more comfortable, not necessarily limiting ourselves to what ranges those launches can go off, and that frees up bandwidth for commercial activity. Hell, maybe we should start launching some of these payloads off, other South America, other ports, and get comfortable with that paradigm, protecting the classified nature of it, but maybe leverage other assets for the Department of Defense or Space Force that are available. Right now, that's the only solution I have for that is kind of looking at that policy and see if that policy is still in the water or still makes sense. But I'm not speaking for the Space Force or the Department of Defense, speaking as a
General Dale Nash.
I do.
Coincidentally, we are, but previously, having run 2 spaceports, Alaska and Virginia, there's this fear and concern, and my other brother Dale, we have that the funding will go to the spaceport or to the range in the future, and will put out of business other commercial spaceports. I think what you talk about, the ability to react and innovate, how do the spaceports leverage what will be done with range of the future to keep up and probably lead that? What would you recommend is the best way to move out on that, to not only stay out but get ahead?
Yeah. When I was the A3 in Building 1, the Director of Operations, Marty Whalen was the A5. And Marty did a heck of a good job. He held quarterly industry days. And he said, hey, here's what we're thinking. And you'd have a room full of smart folks like yourself pushing back on it, giving ideas, novel ideas about how we can transform. It goes back, Dale, to my point that the Department of Defense will acknowledge they don't have the answers, and the commercial industry has the answers. And we need to be open to those and get into a routine pattern of engagement with people that have the answers, and then take action items and follow up on those action items. And allow them to advocate for more funding for our ranges and get comfortable with non-traditional ranges. It's primarily going to be horizontal launches initially off these landlocked, but then eventually I think we're going to get comfortable where we can do some vertical launches as well.
General Craig Campbell from a spaceport in Alaska. So we'll take you up on your bucket list of wanting to do deep sea fishing in Alaska anytime.
I've done that already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'll come back. Tell me when the salmon are running, because I need to get up there.
We'll do that too. So I want to follow Dale a little bit, because that is, as you look to the future, the same struggle we had in aviation almost 100 years ago. The federal government kind of running the airports and running the aviation system. And the long process of deregulation got us to where today. Not always good when you're flying at the seat back of the airplane. However, with that said, as we're looking to the future of really providing more capability to the United States and protecting our national assets, is there a way you see that we can transition more towards a unified space strategy that incorporates our national defense needs as well as the commercial needs of not necessarily defense?
Yeah, there's no question that we need to do that. The rub is going to come into when there is a primacy issue, who has primacy on a launch pad if we need to replenish a Sittersburg or something like that. We're going to have to work through those policy issues. Pam alluded to that as well. But a lot of work to do. I'm optimistic about the future because I'm an optimist, not a pessimist. But we need to, we really do. Thanks for coming down, Shoemaker. Rich Lamb, I tell you, one of the smartest guys I know about on the ranges from aerospace. Thanks for being here. Thanks for giving good advice to the boss. He needs smart people like you. I'm gonna get off stage because we got one more question. How are we doing on time? I feel like I'm running long. Last question. Okay.
Thank you, General. Todd General Mojave. quick question, you talked a lot about the eastern range, the western range. In order to unlock some of the capabilities, or all the capabilities of these more landlocked ranges, would you estimate that a big portion of that equation is solved by the flight conditions?
You say 5 or 10 years? What did you say? So-
Big part of the gas man.
Yeah, I'm just keeping it real with you, because why would I sugarcoat it? I think about half of the ranges that are getting licenses, non-traditional ranges, will fail. I don't think they're all gonna get. We just aren't comfortable as a country now flying stages over population centers. Verticals, I mean, horizontals can be very easy to do. That's going to take off and probably take off. I think it's going to be a tough road to hoe when it comes to horizontal launch. Unless you're in a very unique area, we can get comfortable. I don't see 10 years maybe we can get comfortable with that, but that's really an FAA call. And it's really a public safety call. That's why we need on that. You know, you're going to have to be in an area where you can get commodities in, and your infrastructure is good, you get big stages in, and stuff like that. So, Pam, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
So I agree, it's a safety call, vertical and horizontal. And I think that under the new Part 450 regulations that we have some flexibility in the way that we can do these things. What it comes down to is you have to be public safety. So whether it's a vertical, horizontal, or a big or a small, I mean, all that's going to be right size for the particular location. And I think that's why it's nice that we have such a diverse location within our country, because that allows the opportunity for a bigger selection opportunity for different markets and things like that.
Thank you so much for your kind attention.